Hello guys and gals, and this is part 5 of our reading of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. As always, we're going to go over the copyright information first. This is a novelization by Richie Tankersley Cusick. It's based on a screenplay by Joss Whedon. Now, let me find the copyright information here. It clearly says here, if I can keep the page open long enough, all rights reserved, which includes the right to reproduce this book or portions therefore in any form whatsoever. So, yeah. And in the last episode, Buffy saved Pike's life. What's his name? Amberlin. What's his name? I don't know. Anyways, the one vampire guy's arm ripped off. But he's still alive. And, so then there's that. We were just ready to start chapter 23, I believe. There isn't time, Merrick said. Another of their sessions had ended, and as Buffy packed up and prepared to leave the warehouse, she continued to argue with him. Make time, okay? You're the one who told me to act normal. She ran a critical eye over him, and thought vaguely how subdued he still looked in spite of his casual new clothes. I've missed 3 practices already. If I'm not there for the barber game tomorrow, everyone's going to talk. Another distraction, Merrick said disapprovingly. It's not right. Why? Because I'm not... Why? Because I'm not my fate? It's not in the book of all knowledgefulness that I'm gonna be cheerleading at the barber game? Sooner or later you're gonna have to accept it, your fate. I'm pretty much learning not to accept anything anymore, Buffy grumbled. Come on, Merrick, basketball. Afterwards, we can kill until there's nothing left. She turned to go. None of the other girls even ever gave me this much trouble, Merrick lamented. And where are they now? Buffy smiled at him and left. The gym was packed tonight. Buffy led the other cheerleaders perfectly through the routines, laughing and shouting, feeling almost like her old self again, as the crowd rallied excitedly around her. High up in the stands, Merrick took a seat. He had chosen another new outfit for the occasion, a Letterman jacket and baseball cap, and with his binoculars hanging around his neck, he looked anything but inconspicuous amidst all the screaming teens. On the sidelines below, Coach showed the huddled players some plays. After a brief discussion, they all clapped and broke. So let's go, Coach roared. Yeah, yelled the team. Yelling, the team ran out onto the court, while Coach turned angrily to one player who was lagging behind. There you are. You missed practice again. You're benched till the 4th quarter. Coach didn't notice the look on Gruler's face as the boy walked obediently to the end of the bench and took a seat. Grinning, Gruler turned to the player next to him and spoke in a strange, passionless voice, as if repeating words phonetically. Go team, rah. Go team, go. The other player, oblivious to Gruler's condition, gave him the thumbs up and turned back to the game. The competition was fierce. The score swung back and forth unnervingly close. Both teams played hard and ruthless through the first 3 quarters, keeping the crowd on the very edge of their seats. By the 4th quarter, the Hemmerly fans were anxiously watching the scoreboard at the end of the gym. Hemmerly, 67, Barber, 72. A minute 40 left to play. Buffy and the cheerleaders roused the onlookers with one of their favorites. 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we humiliate? Barber. Barber. Yay. On the sidelines, Coach signaled for a player to come out and then turned to Gruler. Okay, you're in. Make us proud. Gruler ripped off his sweatshirt, pulling it to shreds in his excitement. As he ran past Buffy, she winced from an unexpected pain, and her hesitation threw off the cheerleading routine, causing Nicole to practically fall over her. Buffy, you know these steps. Sorry, Buffy started cheering again, but she'd suddenly grown uneasy. Barber had the ball on the sidelines as the whistle blew and play resumed. They threw the ball in. Gruler was there in a flash, managing a quick steal, then racing down the court, grinning madly. Near the sidelines, Jeffrey started waving his arms. I'm open, Gruler. I'm open. Gruler ignored Jeffrey and everyone else as he headed straight for the basket, knocking several guys out of the way. He jumped impressively and slammed the ball home. The crowd went wild. Barber took the ball out again. It got thrown in and passed up the court a couple times, then somehow Gruler was leaping through the air and intercepted the pass. Once more he made the fast break back to his team's basket. Hey, open, still open, Jeffrey shouted. Check it out. But Gruler still just barreled up the court. Buffy watching closely began to feel seriously concerned. In another section of the screaming stands, Kimberly sat complaining to no one in particular. What is he doing? The clock's running out. Unable to stand it anymore, she yelled, throw the ball, then sat back and turned to the kid sitting beside her. Is he so brain dead? The boy smiled at her with a vacant stare. He waved his pennant mechanically, and when he spoke it was in the exact same monotone as Gruler had used. Raw. Down on the court, Gruler slammed the ball home again, and the crowd roared. Hemmerly 71, Barber 72. 23 seconds left. Barber took the ball out. Someone threw it to the kid Gruler was guarding. The boy looked for a way around Gruler's huge bulk, trying to plan his move. Gruler snarled viciously, showing a mouthful of bloody teeth. Without hesitation, the terrified boy politely handed the ball to Gruler, then stepped back, looking sheepishly at his teammates. Up above, Merrick peered through his binoculars at the court and then at Buffy. Buffy looked back at Merrick. Then she turned and focused once more on the game. Gruler was making his way up the court, slowly this time, with almost every man on the other team guarding him. Buffy could see them all keeping their distance. As more of them began to realize just how terrifying Gruler was, she could actually hear him growling as he snapped at the other players. Jeffrey and Andy stood at the edge of the play, doing little more than watching by now. Gruler's pretty much abandoned the concept of zones, Andy said offhandedly. Put it in, Jeffrey whispered. Gruler reached the basket with 8 seconds to go. Just as he was about to shoot, an opposing player blithely stole the ball from him and made a break down the court. For a moment, Gruler looked both appalled and offended, and then, snarling fiercely, he took off after the kid with blood gleaming in his eyes. Gruler had nearly overtaken the kid when Buffy suddenly slammed into him, sending Gruler flying. Girl! A player yelled, pointing. Girl on the court. From her place in the stands, Kimberly also saw Buffy and leaned forward in disbelief. What is she doing? The strange kid beside her just said, Party hardy. The clock ran out. As the buzzer sounded, the Barber fans went absolutely wild, while around them, the Hemley High kids just looked at each other, totally bemused. Buffy and Gruler lay on the floor of the basketball court. 10 feet apart, they stared hard into each other's eyes. It was then that Gruler smiled, a smug, unearthly smile. And Buffy knew that he knew. Without warning, Gruler took off, running out the door. Buffy jumped up and followed. Okay. We are to chapter 24, I believe. I just want to check and make sure. Pages are... Yeah. Page 118, chapter 24. Here we go. By the time Buffy got outside the gym, Gruler was already several yards away and running like the wind. She took off after him, just as Merrick reached the doorway and shouted after her, "Wait!" But Buffy couldn't stop. Not now. "He knows who I am," she yelled back, and kept going. Gruler's speed was incredible. Buffy followed him doggedly through the dark streets, but it didn't take her long to realize she couldn't keep up. Looking around wildly for help, she spotted a biker on his Harley. She hurried up to the side of the road and tentatively stuck out her thumb, smiling. The biker pulled to a stop in front of her. Buffy looked down at the revving engine, at the smoke puffing thickly from the twin pipes. "Hey, babe," the biker said smoothly. "This is your lucky night." Buffy looked at him for a long moment. The biker landed on the ground with a thud. Buffy revved up the engine of the Harley, squealing the tires, and took off at top speed. "What's the matter with you?" the biker screamed at her. "Too much for you to handle? You're lost, baby." Buffy hung on, trying to navigate the motorcycle and pick up Gruler's trail at the same time. As she roared up to a construction site, she finally spotted Gruler moving effortlessly ahead of her, and she swung sharply off the road, keeping her eyes on him, determined not to lose him again. She steered the bike on a crazy course through the site, bouncing over the rough terrain, and suddenly felt a jolt as she ran into a pile of bricks. The impact threw her headlong from the bike. Buffy hit the ground hard. She rolled into her fall and struggled to get up, but couldn't. Gruler's smiling face appeared above her. "Fall down, go boom." "Have to see the nurse, Gruler," Buffy murmured. "What did they do to you?" Gruler lowered his face towards hers. His voice was no longer passionless. Now it boiled with evil. "They killed me." Without warning, he grabbed Buffy and hauled her up. "No kidding," Buffy answered. She headbutted him with enormous force, sending him staggering back before he could recover. She dived for a pile of discarded lumber and grabbed a nasty shard of wood. As Buffy turned on Gruler, she saw 2 more vampires approaching her, stealthily surrounding her. One of them she recognized as the fan who had been sitting next to Kimberly at the game that night. He was still waving his pennant. "The Master walks tonight," Gruler growled. "This is his kingdom now." The vampires rushed at her. Buffy took on the first creature just as the second attacked and knocked her over. Before she could move, all 3 of them swarmed over her, meeting her kicks with raking claws. Helplessly, she felt herself being lifted up, held there in front of Gruler by the 2 other vampires who forced her to look at him. "You know, Buffy," Gruler snarled, smiling, "I've always wished you were mine." Slowly he leaned towards her neck. As the stake burst through Gruler's chest, a look of shock and surprise stiffened his face. He fell backwards, dead, and Buffy stared in amazement at the figure standing there behind his body. Pike. Buffy felt the vampires loosen their hold as one of them started after Pike. The boy turned and ran. Without a second's hesitation, Buffy grabbed the other vampire and flipped it over onto Gruler, impaling the creature on the same bloody stake. Pike was yelling and running in circles, the vampire right on his heels. "I didn't mean it," Pike cried. "I didn't mean it." With the wood shard in hand, Buffy sprinted towards them, then jumped into a series of flips. She landed with her legs around the vampire's shoulders, planting the stake into its heart as both of them toppled over onto Pike. For a moment, Pike and Buffy lay entangled with each other. They were both breathing hard, and as each of them became acutely aware of the other one's nearness, they separated and got up awkwardly embarrassed. "I didn't expect to see you," Buffy said. "I know." Buffy stared at him, unsure what to say. She wasn't facing the street, and so she didn't see Kimberly, who happened to drive by at that precise moment. As the other girl glanced out her window and noticed Buffy there with Pike, she raised an eyebrow and drove on. "Why'd you come back?" Buffy asked, finally. "I don't know. I kind of thought I ought to be here." Pike gazed back at her. "You know, this isn't exactly the kind of thing you can run away from." Buffy nodded. "Thanks," she said, her voice soft. Besides, Oxnard stinks. They started back towards the fallen motorcycle. Pike bent over slowly to examine it. Listen, I really do want to help. I mean, these guys are dag nasty. And my best friend is out there somewhere. And I'd like to, I don't know, even the score, do some damage. I'm good with damage. Buffy winced as she hunched over a little. She gave a startled gasp. Buffy? Pike was worried. Oh, Pike said worriedly. 25. The biker was still there where Buffy had left him. He was standing beside the road trying to thumb a ride when Merrick ran up to him. Did you see a girl come by here? Merrick said breathlessly. Yeah, I saw her. She took my wheels. Where did she go? Down there. She's a psycho, man. Don't waste your time. He pointed, and Merrick took several steps in the direction of his finger. Idiot girl. How long ago did... Merrick rushed back, and his question froze on his lips. It wasn't the biker who stood there now, not 5 feet away from him. It was a tall figure with a bone-white face. Lothos. Merrick mumbled. The biker was on his knees. Lothos's hands were locked firmly around the kid's throat, so that the boy couldn't move or even breathe. Merrick and Lothos regarded each other calmly. It's a beautiful night, Lothos spoke first. I have never understood the human tendency to equate darkness with emptiness. To me, the black is so thick with life, like soil, like blood. Darkness writhes under my eyes. He gazed thoughtfully into the shadows before speaking again. I remember you. She's out there. She's out here as well, isn't she? Another slayer. Who is it this time? What offering have you brought me? Lothos let go of the biker. The boy fell over on the ground, limp and lifeless. It doesn't really matter, Lothos went on. The names and faces, they all melt together. After a time, there really is no difference. One more pathetic girl just begging for me to end it. This one may surprise you, Merrick said. I rather doubt it. If she was raised here, she's not like the others. Doesn't play our way. It's a rare quality. I don't think she even knows how strong she is. Such drooling sentiments from a watcher. I'm all aglow. Lothos mocked him. Surely she's not that special. The girl in Budapest, now she had spirit. Do you remember when I owed you her heart? Before Merrick could respond, Buffy came running out of the trees nearby, stopping dead in her tracks some 30 feet away from the two men. Startled, Merrick and Lothos turned their heads towards the intrusion. Get away from here, girl, Merrick ordered. Quickly, pretending not to know her. This man is dangerous. Buffy's eyes went wide as they locked on Lothos. He held her in a long stare, and then he smiled back at Merrick. There was a deep, cold knowing in his eyes. What have we here? Lothos purred. I mean it, Merrick said again, more sternly this time. He was watching Buffy, but the girl seemed frozen, unable to move. Get out. Buffy's lips barely opened. Lothos took a step towards her, his eyes sweeping her up and down in a leisurely inspection. All this for me? Leave her, Merrick demanded. If you want a soul, take mine. Lothos gave him a disdainful look. I don't make deals. I want the girl. He turned his attention back to Buffy as Pike roared up beside her on the bike. Still paralyzed, Buffy didn't even seem to realize Pike was there. She kept her gaze full on Lothos as the vampire continued his slow, steady approach. You're not ready for this, Merrick broke in, trying to jar Buffy and get her attention. Go. I think she's ready, Lothos sounded smug. He held out his hand to Buffy as the distance narrowed between them. From the expression on Buffy's face, Merrick couldn't tell if she was entranced or terrified, or both. Pike reached over and shook her hard. Come on, girl, Merrick begged. For once in your life, his voice trailed again as he saw a glimmer of recognition on Buffy's face. And as she focused on him at last, he finished, hopefully, do as you're told. He almost smiled at her, a wise smile full of sorrow. Buffy snapped back to reality and stepped towards the bike behind her. Merrick and Pike looked straight into each other's eyes in that one powerful moment. It was as though some secret understanding passed between them. Then Merrick's lips moved in a silent command. Go. Lothos was ready for them. As Buffy jumped on the bike, Lothos came swiftly behind her, gliding like the wind through the dark. Pike revved the engine, but Lothos was on them in an instant. So intent was he on Buffy that he paid no attention to Merrick in back of him, as the old man gracefully whipped out a gun. Merrick fired into Lothos's back again and again. Lothos stumbled, and Pike and Buffy peeled out from beneath his grasp. Unhurt but furious, he turned on Merrick, his eyes falling on the gun in Merrick's hand. You insult me with that? Distract you, Merrick corrected him. You'll not have this one, not this time. Lothos regained his composure. He started towards Merrick, even though the old man still held the gun at arm's length pointed at him. I have her face, Lothos said, and after I make you mine, you will give me her name. Not in this life, exactly. Everything will come to me in time. Merrick's voice dropped to a near whisper, tight with intensity. Get thee behind me. I told you, Lothos said, smiling. I'm not the evil one. Then I'll deal with him. Merrick pulled the gun back and pointed at himself. The last thing he saw was the startled look on Lothos's face as the shot rang out. Far away on the back of the speeding bike, Buffy shut her eyes, burying her head in Pike's back as the gunshot faded into the night. Had they not been moving so fast, she might have heard something else several moments later. As Merrick's body fell heavily to the ground in front of Lothos, the vampire looked down, his face twisted in disgust and disappointment. And then he let out a hissing roar. Louder, louder, his unearthly cry trembled the night around him with the promise of revenge. 26. Morning sunlight poured in through the dirty windows of the warehouse. As Buffy wandered about aimlessly, she was still wearing her cheerleading outfit, and she hadn't slept all night. She could see Merrick's personal belongings piled on an old crate in the corner. She walked over and stood there, rummaging slowly through them. Maps, newspaper clippings, a battered passport with stamps from a dozen countries, and a classical, unflattering picture of Merrick, his eyes and mouth half open. A stupid souvenir he had obviously picked up at the airport. A glass ball enclosing the LA skyline that snowed when you shook it. Buffy stared at the glass ball for a long time before picking up one last thing. It was a small wooden cross, rough but intricately carved. She put it back on top of Merrick's other stuff. Awkwardly, Buffy knelt, shutting her eyes and thinking hard for several seconds. She started to pray. I'm supposed to say something, but you're just way dead. You know. You're deeply dead, and she sat down heavily on the floor. And I don't know what to do. You were the one who... I don't know. If the training was over, I don't even know if I passed. You're so stupid. How could you be so stupid? What am I supposed to do without you? She stopped and looked down for a moment. Amen. Chapter 27. In the Hemmerly High Gym, a banner was stretched across the central beam of the ceiling. Huge letters proclaimed, "The Earth is our home," with a half-dozen inflatable globes dangling nearby. Nicole and Kimberly were busy setting up the drinks table, unloading and stacking hundreds of styrofoam cups. Jennifer walked by, bouncing a load of plastic wrappings and containers in her arms. I got all the plastic stuff, Jennifer greeted them. What should I do with it? Kimberly stared at her like she was a total idiot. Throw it out. Okay. She watched as Jennifer went on past them, resuming her conversation with Nicole. It really was Mondo Bizarro, Nicole said. Oh, please, Kimberly looked exasperated. When she ran onto the court in the middle of the game, was the most out-of-it thing ever? Or did I blink? Way mental, Nicole agreed. As the two girls started to giggle, Kimberly was the first to notice Buffy walking into the gym. Kimberly and Nicole took one look at Buffy's ragged clothes and weary expression and immediately stopped laughing. "Hi, Buffy," Kimberly spoke up. "Hi, guys. You were supposed to be here at 3, Kimberly reminded her. "I forgot." "Buffy, what's your sitch?" Kimberly complained. "You're acting like the thing from another tax bracket. It's too weird." "Look, a lot's been going on," Buffy tried to explain. "That's what I wanted to tell you guys about. And I need to tell you. You see, a while ago I met this guy." "You have another boyfriend?" Kimberly said seriously. "Cool." Nicole looked pleased. "Does Jeffrey know?" Jennifer asked, coming up beside them. It's not that at all," Buffy shook her head. This is an old guy, he's like 50. Kimberly and Nicole exchanged looks. "You..." No, listen," Buffy insisted. "Haven't you guys noticed how weird things have gotten around here? Like people disappearing, people turning up dead?" "What are you talking about?" Nicole sounded totally bewildered, while Kimberly shrugged in agreement. "Weird? You mean like you hanging out with that Poke guy? I saw you last night after the game." "Pike," Buffy said. "You're having a fling with him?" Nicole looked shocked. "He doesn't look 50. Jennifer mused. Guys, Buffy's voice rose. "Reality pulled out of here 5 minutes ago." "Oh, thank you very much," Kimberly retorted. "Like you've got a grip," Nicole frowned. "You're so out of it," Jennifer joined in. "You've blown off cheerleading. You've blown off the dance committee." Buffy looked at them as though she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Excuse me for having something important to do." "This isn't important," Kimberly challenged her angrily. "This is the dance." "Right," Buffy held her ground. "It's a dance. It's a stupid dance with a bunch of stupid kids that I see every stupid day." "So we're stupid now," Nicole lifted her chin indignantly. "You know, just because you're going through a life crisis doesn't mean you have to drag us into it," Kimberly added, just as upset. "This isn't just any dance. It happens to be the last dance of our last year. Look, Buffy, you want to play house with the unwashed masses. That's fine. But personally, I think you ought to spend a little time prioritizing. I really do." "Listen to you," Buffy stared at her. "What language are you speaking?" "Get out of my facial." Kimberly turned and stormed out. "Well, I guess you got what you came for," Nicole added hastily. No, nastily. "Nicole." "Later for it," Nicole cut her off abruptly. Buffy stood there and watched as Nicole and Jennifer huffed out of the gym. She stood there for a long, long time, alone and very small amidst the bright party streamers. Well, we made it to chapter 28. We'll be picking this up when we get back to this. We've been reading Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It is a novelization by Richie Tankersley Cusick. If you like this content, then make sure you like and subscribe. Ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, if you want to support me in any way, all that information will be in the description below. As always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.